Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order. Approve the council agenda and any agenda additions or corrections.
Mayor and council, we have one addition to the agenda. You could put, I suppose, item 10.5. There's a transient request, and everyone should have received a copy of that request at the meeting tonight here.
I'll move to approve the agenda with that correction.
I will second.
Motion by Mary, second by Chad to approve the agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor? Roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Invocations from River of Hope Church.
Pastor Janine Olson, interim pastor at River of Hope. Thank you for this opportunity. Let us pray. Direct us, gracious God, in all our doings with your most gracious favor, and extend to us your continual help and wisdom. We pray your blessing over these, your elected leaders and officials, that in all we do and say would serve you in love. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Dave, you want to do the honors again, sir?
I'd love to. I'll stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one justice for all. Thank you.
Recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything tonight? We do have a couple resolutions underneath there. Can we do these both at once, Matt? Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Resolution number 15226, resolution accepting $600 donation from the Walter and Lynn Clay for the paving trail project connecting the Loose Line Trail to the Law Enforcement Park Memorial. And resolution number 15229, resolution accepting the donation of Seat of Sound sculpture. You have a motion to accept those?
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second them.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to accept. Any other discussion? Steve, you want to say anything about that sculpture?
Do I want to say anything about it?
No, Steve.
Oh, Steve, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dave and Steve sound a lot alike.
Okay.
Steve,
I said maybe Dave wants to, but anyway, yeah, just for the public standpoint, we had an artist that had a piece in the sculpture Stroll in December 2018, 2019 sculpture Stroll. She was from Mississippi, and just to a variety of circumstances, she hasn't been able to come up to pick it up. It was called the Seat of Sound. It was located over by West River Park by the River Song Stage when it was here. And she has graciously offered to gift it to the city because she really doesn't know when she'll be able to come up to get it because of COVID and some other things going on in her life. So Parks Department has some ideas of where it can go and some other things they'll be able to do, and think it'll be a nice addition to the whole stroll. So, that's it.
Alrighty, I'll call the motion. Roll call, Dave,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Citizens addressing the council. I do have Pat May that wanted to address the council, so if he's there, please come forward.
He's coming. Do I need to keep this on? It's up to you.
All right. First of all, thanks for letting me in on kind of a short notice. And it came to my attention through the Real Life in Hutchinson post on the website for that. And what I'm here about is the proposed, or maybe it's already been signed, I guess, deal between Citizen and this EDA in regards to putting up a 4-story apartment complex building, whatever it's going to be titled, along the riverfront. And I, along with a lot of other people, looked at that article. That's the first I saw of it. And I realized I probably, if I want to be more involved, I could have contacted EDA, but I wasn't sure where any of this was. At any rate, it kind of struck me as, I just think that's such a beautiful natural resource we have right there. And whether it's too late or not, I just feel I really had to speak my mind in the fact that I think that's one of the best attributes we have to attract people to Hutchinson is the beautiful river that we have flowing through, opens up into 2 nice lakes. And to put up a commercial building, while I'm all for developing Hutchinson, growing the community, I just believe there are other locations that would more suit this. And I know this is probably coming at a late time, but I couldn't let that go because I think there were somewhere around 152 comments on this particular posting that was done by Stephen Weblow. I may be saying that wrong, but our leader editor. And I didn't count them up, but I would be willing to bet about 90% were against it. Now I understand, like I said, I'm 100% for Hutchinson redeveloping, using resources. And I just did the little bit that was posted in there. I thought there was around $360,000 that were spent by the city to get rid of the Cenex fertilizer plant. And I believe it might have been a Standard Oil bulk plant there at one time. But my question is, to recoup that, it's a dollar thing. And I get it. We're driven by dollars. That's reality. But wouldn't Cenex have had to have paid some of those costs to get rid of that soil or Standard Oil? I got to believe they would have been liable before the city would even enter into a purchase agreement to take that on and then have to clean it up. Now, maybe the $360,000 was just to smooth it out, plant some grass, but if so, I need to get into that business. It just, I guess I can't stress strong enough how I wish somehow we would have been able to know about this ahead of time. I look at, you know, whether it's a Shopko site or where the Dollar General or whatever that's going to be called is going. I would rather see an apartment building there than right along the riverfront. My wife and I walk our dog down there and you just see tons of people using this. And I'm not saying it'll be an eyesore, although personally I kind of feel it will be. I'd rather see nature than a brick and mortar structure along the river. And I just hope that like I said, I think there's been a signature made with EDA, and I see on the agenda tonight that the council will approve or not approve it. And just being a lifelong member of Hutch and just really care about the town, I just think that's a terrible place for that. I look at the hotel that went up on the corners of 715 and 22, and I thought that was beautiful when we cleared that out. And then all of a sudden, and I get it, we need development, but then we put that building up there, and all of a sudden, we're going to be blocking generations of view. And my understanding was that this is going to be kind of a high-end development. And then with the TIF financing, that will require a percentage of low income or lower income. And I don't even know if this is a good match to have together. And I understand it's part of TIF. I get that 100%. But 20 years down the road, when I won't be around to enjoy it, but my grandkids will, that building will have deteriorated, and all of a sudden you had this beautiful lot, and there it's going to be upkeep. And nothing against the developer, the city, I understand wanting it, but I really feel strongly about this. I'm opposed to it, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Pat, for those comments. Anybody else, Matt?
Anybody from the public that'd like to address the council, please come forward and state your name for the record. Mayor, we do have at least 2 people, it looks like, that would like to address the council, so.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Brad Birch, Hutchinson, 744, Milwaukee. Does that make sense? Sorry. Appearance is everything, you know. I just would have a couple questions that I'd like to ask. I also am somewhat not disturbed. I like that lot for public use a lot, and no pun intended. But it just seems like it'd be a shame to have a 3-4 story building set up on the river like that. I have an idea that there's going to be a few setbacks anyway. I was curious as to the status of the offer, and if somebody could explain the difference of an option on the property and the right of first refusal. I'd like to have a clear concept of which is which, and if another offer can be entertained in the interim. And I would like the council to not make a decision tonight, table it for a couple weeks to get some additional public input. I love going down to the river. I fish it all the time. That's not the best fishing spot, but I won't disclose that anyway. But it's still nice to have the open area. I appreciate your time, and if somebody could address those questions, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Just to Brad to answer that, and for Pat who spoke, it is on later in the agenda. So I guess I would encourage the council, when we get to that point, if you would like to address some of those questions, that'd probably be the more appropriate time. But obviously, this is the portion for the public to provide some feedback. So
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks.
just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Deb Billiette. Address is currently 50 Century Avenue Southeast, Hutch. I just want to address this as well. I think that it would be a crying shame to put a building like that down by the river on the waterfront like that. I think that something there should be for the benefit of the entire community, not just for a few. I've probably logged more miles running, walking, and biking around this town than anyone. I have spent years on the trail. I have watched the use of it increase, both with residents and visitors. I am stopped time and time again down there by people from out of town asking me, what is there to do? Where can I get groceries? Where can we go out to eat, etc. And for a lot of them, they'd like something walking distance. I mean, how nice to be at the campground and just to be able to walk down the trail, to take advantage of the coffee shop sitting down there, or, you know, a little restaurant or ice cream stand or whatever. I just think that there are much better uses for the property. And I'm also, I kind of feel like, has there ever been a vision for the riverfront going through town? I mean, when you walk the length of it, it doesn't obviously look like there's ever been a vision for it, that things have just kind of sprung up all over the place. And it just seems to me that communities that I've visited that have waterfront, whether it's lake or river, they look like they've planned around it, that there's been a vision in mind, a plan in mind, and they've built according to that. And we don't look like we've ever done that. And I don't recall ever having that put out to the population. I don't recall there ever being a time where we could put forth ideas for the use and the development of that area. So I guess it's kind of disappointing. It feels like this is just being pushed through without the general population having a chance to weigh in. So I feel strongly that it shouldn't happen, that other avenues should be explored. Thank you.
Attorney Buzz, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name's Sarah Young. I live on the River Bluff on James Street, and I utilize the area a lot. Walking, running, taking the dog out there. So it's an important area. And I agree with everybody here. It is a great community asset, and the key word is community. So, and I go back to the Hutchinson Downtown Vision and Action Plan that was done back in 2013. And I just really want that to kind of stay on the top of everybody's mind, that the important piece of that downtown area along the river, the asset that the public spoke about was that they valued the community trails, the waterfront, the recreation areas, and things like that. So I guess my request is that it stay with that plan. That's what the community requested and spoke about. And that seemed to be the important factor in that vision. It wasn't commercial, it wasn't housing. Those were not the assets that they spoke about that area being developed. And then I know one of the big questions was, the tax revenue that the city can pull in for that building. We've had a lot of apartment buildings going up in Hutchinson in the last year, and I don't even know if they're at occupancy yet. So I guess the other comment I have is just caution, take it slow. This might be the first offer we've seen in 10 years, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the last. And I'd rather that a decision is made for the best use of the site instead of just taking the first offer that comes to us in 10 years. The site's going to be there for a while. We're all going to continue to enjoy it, hopefully. And I just don't think there's a rush to make any rash decisions on the site, especially for a 3-story building. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to address the city council? Like I said, this is an agenda item later on in the agenda, so it will be addressed by the council. And I would assume that the council members will address some of the comments made at that time as well.
Yes, we will. All right, moving on, approval of minutes, regular meeting minutes of October 13th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve those.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Mary to approve the minutes from October 13th. All in favor, roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Excuse me for a second. All right. Consent agenda. This will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. Resolution number 15224, resolution to activate deferred assessment. We have B as resolution number 15225, resolution for certification of special assessment from the city of Hutchinson to the McLeod County Auditor. C is approval of issuing short-term gambling license to the Crow River Cutters from November 1st through the 22nd, 2020 at Main Street Sports Bar. D is approval of resolution number 15227, resolution adopting finding of facts and reason for approval of preliminary and final plat for the Han addition to Maryview. And E is approval of resolution number 15228, resolution adopting finding of facts and reason for denial of variance application to reduce the side yard setback from 8 feet to 6 feet on the property located at 1891 West Shore Drive, Southwest. And F is claims appropriation and contract payments. Is there anything that anybody wants pulled off for discussion?
Make a motion to, go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Steve, second by Dave to approve consent agenda. Any other discussion? Roll call. Dave,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. No public hearing, communications, requests and petitions, nothing, unfinished business. Entering into a purchase agreement for 3rd Avenue Southwest site, former Scenic Fertilizer plant.
Mayor and Council, we've got EDA Director Miles Sepult here to, I guess, reintroduce the proposal to the council for your consideration tonight. Miles?
Okay, Tom, I'll need your help so I can share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, good. This is just picking up on Mayor and Council. This is just picking up on a discussion that we started 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going to give a brief recap of what we talked about then. And then I want to be very sure to answer all the questions that were brought up tonight, because I think they're very good questions. So I'm just going to do a quick recap of what we talked about a couple weeks ago, and then I'll hit a few of these points, and then I'll answer any questions that might come up. So basically, we're just looking at an option to potentially redevelop this lot that's on 3rd Avenue Northwest. For some time now, the EDA has been looking to identify a developer that would come in and do a project on this site. And so we do have a housing developer from the Twin Cities that has shown an interest. The proposed price for this lot, which is just over 3 acres, would be $351,000, $351,329. The developer has asked for a purchase agreement, and the question came up earlier, you know, why not do an option or why not do a right of first refusal? And those are very good questions. So really the reason that we're looking at a purchase agreement is what the developer had asked for. They wanted some level of security because they're going to be doing a lot of work on this lot to make a determination if it's going to be suitable for development. So they need to do some environmental work. They've got to do some site planning work and some architectural work to see if the project is feasible to begin with, and if it's a good decision to go ahead and do a project there. You know, they're potentially looking at doing a $10 million project on this site, and they don't want to start writing checks to investigate all of this without having some assurance that at the end they would have the first opportunity to purchase the site. So the question came up, why not do an option or why not do a right of first refusal? Really, the developer just didn't feel like that gave them enough security to move ahead, because they're going to be spending thousands of dollars doing their investigation. And with the purchase agreement, I want to be very careful to emphasize that, you know, although it's called a purchase agreement, there's a whole bunch of options built within it that the city can say, no, we're not going to go through with this. Or the developer can say, no, I'm not going to go through with it. So, I mean, there's a number of off-ramps kind of built into the purchase agreement. So I don't want people to get thrown off by the name of the document. In no way, shape, or form are we obligated to move forward and do a project. Really, all it is just providing the developer with some security so that they can do their investigation and feel like if everybody agrees that they'll be the first in line to be able to buy it. That's really all that they're after. Just a little bit of the history of that lot. You know, years ago, it was a Cenex fertilizer plant used to be there. And then where the trees are kind of in the middle of the lot, there was a really small old house that was there. And then across the southern edge of the lot next to where the loose line trail is now, that used to be part of the rail line, used to be there. Back in, I'm going to say it was maybe 2007 or so, the EDA initiated a project to get this area cleaned up and begin the process of redevelopment. That's part of our function as the Economic Development Authority, is that we want to be getting rid of blight. We want to take things that are an eyesore and a hazard and get rid of them and get things cleaned up so that we can get some nice modern development. That's part of the EDA's function. So we made an approach to Cenex about buying their facility, and they agreed. And then as we went along, we had to bring in the city as kind of a partner in this thing because the costs were just going to be more than what the EDA could sustain by itself. So the EDA and the city partnered up to buy the Cenex lot. We bought the house that was next to it, and then we acquired the right of way on the south side, and then we had this all replatted to make it into 1 3-acre lot. The price that we talked about, I guess it was the investment. The EDA invested a little bit more than $201,000 from its downtown loan fund for this project. And then the city partnered by lending us $150,000 from their community improvement fund. So altogether it was $351,329 to buy the properties, remove all the buildings that were there, remove all the concrete and all that stuff, and just get everything straightened up for redevelopment. And then at that same time, Cenex entered into a program through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to do the underground cleanup that needed to occur. So in summary, you know, between the EDA and the city, and then with the partnership of Cenex, we took this lot that was really pretty blighted and substantially contaminated, and we got it all cleaned up and made into what it is today. It's a 3-acre parcel for redevelopment. And I do want to emphasize that, you know, at no point at the beginning or the middle or today, it was never the intent that this is going to become a 3-acre city park. That was not our thought process. You know, Riverside Park is right next door, and you go either direction, east or west, there's parks and more parks and more parks. So it was not the intent that this be a park. That's not why we went into it. So right now, what's being proposed by the developer is a 50-unit apartment complex. And a question kind of came up, why now or why this? You know, we've had this lot for over a decade and been looking to get it redeveloped for over a decade. It's been a long road. And, you know, the opportunities are few and far between to do this. And, you know, it depends on a developer. Somebody's got to come in and say, yes, I'm going to be investing millions of dollars. And those opportunities don't come very often. And quite frankly, we were hurt by the fact of the Great Recession back in 2009. That really set us back a lot. And now we are here in 2020 and we have an opportunity. We had another developer last year that looked at it, and they just determined it was going to be too expensive, that it wasn't going to work. And so then we were able to identify another developer, a separate developer, to come in and look at this. The one consideration that we got to get out there for everybody to think about is that in order for this project to work, it's going to require a housing redevelopment TIF district. If that's the decision that the council makes to say, yep, housing for this area, then a housing TIF district is going to have to be part of that equation. And that's simply because, I mean, the project's just not going to work economically for the developer. They're just not going to go down that road unless they get some help to really push this thing forward. It's expensive to do these things. You know, like I mentioned before, I mean, the developer's looking at potentially a $10 million investment. That's a big investment.
Miles, would you want to explain what that means? Because I don't know that everybody knows what a TIF district is.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fair question. So what is a TIF district? Just really quickly, basically the way it works is that in a TIF district, the developer is going to be paying their property taxes every year like they normally would on the finished building. And with a TIF district, the city can capture a chunk of that money and then it gets redeveloped to help offset some of the project costs. So in this case, the developer is going to pay us on the front end, they're going to pay us $351,000 for the lot. So that lets the city gets reimbursed for their investment of $150,000. The EDA gets reimbursed for their investment of the $201,000. And then the tax increment that gets generated each year is going to flow back to the developer to help offset the cost of the land acquisition and to build the building. Because like I said, it's a pretty expensive proposition. So basically, long story short, the developer is going to pay the property taxes and then a chunk of that's going to come back to them to offset some of their costs.
Say, Miles, and you might want to note that's for a set period of time as well.
Right. Yep. And that would be for just a set period of time. It's not an endless thing. It's just for a period of time or up to a certain dollar amount or whatever. And that gets negotiated between the city and the developer. It was brought up about the Imagine Hutchinson plan. Well, I just want to kind of summarize the benefits to the city as we see them. You know, number one, it's going to allow us to recover our investment. So, I mean, there'll be a chunk of money that goes back to the city's community improvement fund. Then it can get used for other things. We'll get $201,000 to go back to the EDA's downtown revolving loan fund. That lets us do other things. The project, you know, it's designed to revitalize that neighborhood. I mean, over the years, it has kind of gone downhill, and you know, there's some, it's just not the best looking area right now. And so we want to revitalize that and tune that up. The project, it actually does implement the Imagine Hutchinson plan. I mean, there's a page in the plan where it identifies this exact site as an opportunity for housing to take advantage of the river, take advantage of the loose line trail, take advantage of the fact that it's near the downtown. The whole idea is to kind of leverage the amenity of the river. The fourth benefit to the city is it provides much needed housing. I mean, we've got a shortage of housing right now. It's almost impossible to find an apartment. And so this would help meet some of that need. And then the final benefit, I think, is that it helps strengthen our downtown. We want to get more people living in and around the downtown because that will strengthen our downtown businesses. It's going to help our chances on redeveloping the Shopco building. And it's going to help us create a downtown arts and entertainment district. We want people living, working, playing, being entertained in and around the downtown. It's just about building a nicer, neater, more walkable community. As I mentioned previously, the purchase agreement, it's called a purchase agreement, but there's a number of exits built into it. And so, you know, the agreement itself, it's going to have some minimum requirements. You know, we want to, you know, we always think about, we want a certain level of development on these things. So, I mean, it's going to have a minimum of 50-unit apartment complex. We want to have construction underway within a couple years. And if everything were to work out, not saying that it will, but if everything does work out, I mean, this would be a 2021 project. The developer has to meet the zoning requirements. They got to follow the city site and project approval processes. The buyer's responsible for all due diligence. Here now I want to mention Pat at the very beginning talked about, you know, being able to be a part of this process. And I would just say, no, it's not too late. We're at the very, very first step. And so there are lots of opportunities going forward for citizen input, for people to review and look at the site plan, to look at the design for this thing. And we want that input. So it's by no way, shape, or form, this is not the finish line. This is the starting line. And we're just starting this process. So there'll be lots of opportunity for people to weigh in. One of the things that's in the purchase agreement too is that we specify that subject to the approval of the council, which is not a given, but you know, a housing TIF district would be part of the equation if the council agrees to it. And then the developer may terminate the agreement, and then the developer has 6 months in which to do their due diligence. And so here I just want to emphasize that no matter what the decision is tonight, the city council retains all the authority. The city council can reject this zoning change that needs to happen. They can refuse to approve the development agreement, which we haven't even negotiated yet. They can reject the site plan. They can say no to the housing TIF district. They can refuse to pass the ordinance needed to sell the property. So, I mean, there's lots of opportunities to put an end to this thing, if that's the decision. Earlier today, Councilmember Cook had asked for a little addendum to the council agreement. And this came to me kind of a little bit late, so I was typing furiously. And I don't know if the council members received this or not, but there should hopefully be a little one-pager addendum in front of you. And I did talk it over with the developer, and it just makes it crystal clear what the conditions are. You know, that the council retains the final authority, and that they need to be mindful of the zoning regulations that govern that site. And so the developer said, that's fine. Let's just type something up. We'll get it signed. So with all that, and that was a little bit longer than I planned, what's being requested tonight is for the council to approve the purchase agreement, to approve the purchase agreement addendum, and then give staff the mayor and the city administrator authority to sign this. This will just trigger the developer being able to do their due diligence. It's not, again, not the final thing. It's just the very first step, and there's plenty of opportunities to put the brakes on or cancel it or whatever gets decided. So that's all I have to say. I guess I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sure, Miles. So is it possible that it could be asked of the developer to put in a couple of storefronts that maybe would face the river, or has that been asked already?
No, I did I mean, I think everything's on the table. I did talk with the developer this afternoon at about 4 o'clock or so. And, you know, I said, you know, we're gonna have to work together to make sure that something gets put together that the community and the council is going to be happy with. And he said, you know, by all means.
Miles, as you know, we've talked or shared emails, but I guess my concern is two things. One is, you know, the 3 stories, and the other one is just the density, you know, and that's where the 3 stories comes in, to have room for that. And, you know, I think a 3-story building on the south side of the river in the medical center site fits better because, you know, you have downtown and taller buildings all around it, you know, so it fits downtown. Yep. I just have a hard time, you know, getting the feel for that on this site, kind of echoing what other people said. It's what's being kind of talked about. Well, we don't know. I guess what it's mentioned before, it'd be 3-story probably, because with the stormwater and proximity to the river, the garages would be on the first level and then build up. But, you know, in lieu of that, you know, we've had other developments in town, townhouses that are 2 stories and have a tuck under garage. And I just see that really as being a better fit. People have talked about the downtown plan, and I actually brought that with, which nobody will be able to see. But as you noted, housing was included in there, or another rendition had some commercial development. So, if people are interested, this is on the planning and EDA's website to look at this, because it actually goes from the parks all the way to the east towards Bluff Street in that area, also on the north side of the river as well. So there is a plan. That said, what was shown in that plan from housing is smaller clusters of townhouses. And then in that, there's open green space, and even parking is kind of clustered, and there's a park, stormwater pond, included in that, and obviously a lot of landscaping. But I counted, there might be 18 to 20 units in that rendition. Even if it was commercial, there was going to be, just limited development mixed in with open space, which really fits what was, one, the stormwater management criteria. But, that limits building heights to 25 feet. So I think right there, that would exclude a 3-story building unless we gave a variance. And I don't know what the DNR would say about that. And then also the River Overlay District part in our zoning ordinance, which really looks at trying to preserve this area, these areas around the river, to have development that's done, really fit the river, the parks, the trails. And, I don't see this as meeting those desires, I guess. And, you mentioned this previous developer and the plan that they had kind of floated that still wouldn't work, but that would have been 66 units, and it really developed a lot of the lot and had it close to the trail, and was 4 stories for that. So I don't see where 50 is going to get us much less. It might be 3-story then, but still, it's still a question how well it would fit in there. And I appreciate you talking to the developer and, bringing this forward, these other things, because I just felt if it does move forward, I wanted to make it clear that the city had an out, just like the developer has an out, and that they're aware of some of these other zoning regulations that pertain to the area.
So Miles, has the developer indicated what kind of lot coverage percentage he's looking at to make this thing float? Because
No.
3 acres it's a pretty good sized lot, and
Yep.
I was wondering if that's been talked about.
Not directly. I mean, the developer's really at the beginning, and I mean, they haven't really had a chance to really make any drawings or do anything yet. I think when it comes to lot coverage, I mean, Councilmember Cook makes a good point. I mean, we got to take care of stormwater considerations and all that stuff. What I can say is that if this does go forward, I think the general idea would be that to the east of the trees, there'd be a pretty substantial pond that would have to go in there to account for the stormwater runoff. And then any building and parking lot would be on the western side of the lot, where it's a little bit deeper. And then I should note too, I mean, in order for the project to work at all, the developers, they got to make this thing cash flow. So I mean, that's part of the calculation, I guess, when it comes to the number of units. I mean, they got to be able to collect rent off of these things to be able to pay for the project and give them at least some sort of a profit. I mean, that's, you know, kind of why they're into it. If we limit the number of units too much, it's just not going to cash flow. The project just isn't going to work from a business standpoint. Now, naturally, I mean, that's entirely at the discretion of the council, and we're going to do whatever you guys tell us to do. I just want to make sure that we've got that out there so that everyone understands that we can squish it down, but then there's a point where the project doesn't work anymore. So.
Has the developer indicated, like, is 50 like the basement of that number, or have they talked about that at all?
No, he just said 50. And I don't know if that's the bottom number or not. I haven't really asked him. You know, to be honest, I was a little bit surprised when he told me 50 because, you know, as Councilmember Cook alluded to, I mean, we were talking with a different developer a year ago. They were looking at 66 units. They felt like that was the minimum to make the project work. So now with the developer from the cities that we're talking with now, if he says 50, I'll say, okay, that's great. But, you know, I was a little bit surprised by that number, actually.
But at the same time, the agreement says a minimum of 50. So we don't know what it'll be coming back with to make it work.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yep, I understand that. So, I mean, when I wrote that down, actually, my thought was that we would want more density, because that's kind of the principle you follow with development, is you want to get as much density as you can to really maximize the usage of the site. So that's why I wrote it as a minimum. I have to believe that as we go through the process, assuming that we go forward, that we can certainly bring it up to the developer that, you know, can we get by with less? And if we need to amend the purchase agreement going forward, you know, that's certainly a possibility.
What about the idea of just hiring an architect to try to develop a plan that more realistically meets the objectives of the downtown plan, but also the river overlay district meets the stormwater things. But, you know, I just see we've got even local developers that have done some really nice infill, if you want to call it, housing, that they're not huge developments, but they take smaller area and then work with that, and, you know, and see what might be possible with that.
And yeah, I think that's certainly in the realm of possibility. I would note too, I mean, maybe we get to the same point with this developer, because we can enumerate what we want to see. We can say, hey, as you're doing your design work, we want to see this and that and the other, and then we'll see if he goes for it or not.
Miles, are you thinking more, or Steve, are you thinking more like townhouses down there? Or what?
Yeah, I guess that was a thought I had, because, you know, just being able to sell units versus renting them, there might, from the cash flow aspect, it might work better. I get with the EDA, they want to recoup, you know, the money out of your downtown plant too. And, but maybe there's some ways to do that as well. But yeah, I guess from a housing aspect, that's what I was thinking, more like a 2-story townhouse type, maybe some clusters of that. And so maybe working with the HRA, you know, would be a possibility.
Hey, Miles, this is Dave. This really follows your original plan for the redevelopment of that property, though, doesn't it? From 13 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever it is. This is falling into that segment of how you guys planned it out at that time for the reuse of that land. So I'm only going to say this, and it's not objectionary to anything, is that basically that plan has been on the books for the 12 or 13 years, and nothing has come to light as to a reject on that because of the park and the river and that type of stuff. So I'm just trying to say that people have known that this was a possibility. This could happen in the last 10, 12, 13 years. So just to clarify that.
I would disagree with that though, Dave. If you look at the plan, I don't think that's what it's showing on these lots or this lot in particular. So it's a less dense development that has a lot of green space added to it. And so yeah, I just think, you know, as I looked at it more and traveled down there and looked at other units and stuff, as other speakers have talked about, the river is really an asset. We've got a gem there with the trails and the river and the parks. And I'm not saying don't do any development in it, but let's be smart about it. And yeah, you know, there's all kinds of off-roads in this purchase agreement. So it could be done and we could still reject it. We still have an opportunity to work with the developer, as Miles said, to possibly get something more in line with what we want. But the fact is, it still says a minimum of 50 units. So to me, that's problematic. I think, you know, we've really have to thank prior councils. I know there are some flood buyback property things too that took place in some areas, but, and then the EDA, you know, and the city on this site in particular that really worked to make the river as inviting as it is. It's really a unique to have the linear park system like we have and the trail and stuff like that. So I don't want to take away from that. I want to accent it and make it all work for the community that way.
Thing of it is that, you know, people that are going to come and develop it, you know, they got to make the money too. I mean, that's, you know, they're going to develop it. They're going to looking to make the money back too.
Well, I'd rather leave it green if it can't be developed. So that's where I'm at. If it can't be developed in a tasteful way that's in harmony with everything else.
So Steve, if the council is going to hamstring the EDA, then like, would you propose that the city make the EDA whole on it if it's going to be redeveloped as a park, which I don't think was the indication. Hey, the EDA could take that money and do something better with it.
Yeah, was an option that I was thinking of, that, you know, perhaps the council would entertain that down the road. But I think before we did that, it might be good, like I said, just to hire an architect and work with some developers to kind of look at other options that might fit the plan a little closer with that. But even with that, you know, if, you know, as far as making the EDA whole, I would be fine with that. That's just me personally, but that's what I'd suggest. Because you're right, you know, the EDA put that money in. Part of it was out of their downtown redevelopment plan, and they could utilize those funds in other ways too. There's other projects that you're working on.
It's Mary here. When I look at it and I think of 3 stories, that is high down by the river. I agree with that. I do think if it was a townhouse development, brownstones, maybe something in that era, not so big, all owned individually, it might blend better in that area. I'm not opposed to a developer coming in and doing that. That property's been on our Well, it's been with the city for what, 12 years now? That's a long time for us to hold that property. And I know the EDA, I know Miles, you've worked hard on this project, but maybe we need to step back a little and take a better look at this and reassess this. You know, I know everybody really wants to have like a restaurant down there, a coffee shop, bookstore, whatever. But you know what? You have to have an investor who is going to do those things. You know, we don't get to pick, we get to choose what's going down there, but we don't get to pick the investor who's investing the money to put it in that spot. You know, I would love a coffee shop, a little restaurant on the river. But if you don't have the investors, we have a restaurant that's sitting downtown that's empty, you know, and times are different now, you know, and houses are selling right now, but we don't know what it's going to be like a year from now, 6 months from now. That's just my thought. So that's it.
Miles, what about going back to the developer and, you know, asking them to look at possible other options or alternatives before we enter into this, maybe a scaled down type of configuration? Or, and I only say that because you've been working with him. And, but again, I go back to that other option about working with an architect and maybe some local developers too.
Yep. And I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, if that's the decision of the council, then that's absolutely what we're going to do. You know, I do want to kind of bring out Mary's point a little bit. You know, these developers, they're not exactly coming out of the woodwork to spend $10 million on these sites. I mean, this is the second one that we've come across in 13 years. And so I feel a little skittish about doing anything that might cause him to throw up his hands and say, well, it's not worth it. Can we find another developer? Sure. I think one of the considerations is that, you know, personally, I think we were pretty darn lucky to find a developer that was going to pay us what we actually had invested in the lot. You know, there's $351,000, that's a chunk of money. And for him to say, yeah, I'll write you the check for that, that was a little bit of a coup. And we might be able to come up with another developer, but I'm not convinced that they're going to write that check. So then, you know, the discussion would be, you know, what are we willing to take for this? You know, that's a whole nother discussion. So can we get another developer? Yes. Can we delay tonight and go back to the developer to see what he's willing to consider? Yes, we can do that. My preference, and this is just me speaking, would be to say, can we approve the agreement tonight and then still have that conversation? Because we still have plenty of off ramps to take, and he's got to work with us too. I mean, we're holding a lot of cards here, and he's got to make us happy at the end of the day. And I totally get that we need to deliver what's best for the community. So, and I'm all for that. That's what we want to get.
Mayor and council, I'll just note, obviously, you have in front of you tonight for consideration, you have really three options. One is to approve it. Second option is to deny it. And a third option would be to table it. So I guess just to keep that in mind for consideration, what's in front of you tonight.
Miles, could we just table it and you could go back and have a discussion with them and tell them what our concerns are and
Yes.
see if he wants to do it, or at least get the feel for what's he feeling like.
You know, I think that's just fine. I mean, I'll say fine, and I'll work it. You know, he's not going to be thrilled, obviously. I mean, he was chomping at the bit to get this thing going, and he says, "I got my architects ready to go. We need to go." But I mean, if the council tables it, I'll just tell them, I'll say, that's what we have. So it'll be fine.
We also have an EDA meeting tomorrow, so that would give a chance for the EDA board to talk a little bit about it as well.
I think that'd be good, Chad. That'd be, give you guys a chance to mull it over and see what you come up with.
Make a motion to table it then. Do you need like for the next? I was just gonna ask how long. I know, again, the developer wants to have a feel for it, but maybe in 2 weeks, they'll have that, right? So, okay.
All right, motion by Steve, second by Mary to table it. Any other discussion? Roll call. Dave?
Nay.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Miles.
All right, sounds good. Good discussion. So we'll talk about it at EDA tomorrow. I'll talk with the developer, and if you guys have any certain notes that you want to send to me that I can use as I talk with the developer, in terms of this is what we're thinking, or this is what we would prefer, or whatever, then certainly send those my way and I'll convey them to the developer, and we'll just keep working on it.
Say, Miles, I think it's important, since you're online, to, I guess, maybe point people to the direction where we do have information for lots that are for sale. There's some comments tonight that people didn't realize that this was out here. And I think for those of us that have obviously been with the city, and even in the EDA, we've been working for the last 12, 13 years to try to sell it. So maybe that says something on the word that's getting out or not getting out, but maybe you just want to touch on that a little bit.
Clearly, I should have put a big sign on that lot about 13 years ago.
But we do have that listed currently on our website, and when we have site selectors that approach us, that is obviously one of the avenues that we go to. Correct.
And I think if anybody, the folks that spoke tonight during the citizen input section, I mean, if anybody wants to call me and talk about this or learn more about it, HutchinsonEDA.com is the website, and then my phone number is right on the top. They can call me anytime, and I'm happy to talk with them and answer any questions that anyone might have.
I had one other thing, if I may. We have 2 large apartment buildings, on the south, the Highfield units that are coming on, and I think they might both be 38 units, so another 76. It looked like Century Court West was having at least another unit staked out. So maybe ask Gene Ward with the HRA, or Gary, I don't know when your next meeting is, but I know right now our vacancy rate is still like 2%, which is ridiculously low. Normally you want to be around 5. So there is room for more units to be available, but if we added those, is there any idea of what our vacancy rate might be, after that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
take that into account.
Yeah, Stephen, I'll echo that, because I think you bring up a good point, and I know the question was raised. We have a lot of apartments that are going up. The 3 that went up by Quick Trip are full. The townhomes that went up across from the movie theater, last I heard, those are full. So, and with that, we still have a vacancy rate that's under 2%. And so the reason that we're seeing these requests to build apartments is because there's obviously been a need that's been identified, and they've been getting filled. Now, obviously, as Steve noted, you've got 2 more that's planned out by Quick Trip, and then I know Century Court Townhomes had, I think, a 2nd and 3rd phase, and I'm not sure where they're at with that. But I think that's a good point to raise, is that there's still more coming on, and eventually there's going to come a point where it's potentially saturated. And I do see that Dan's on. on the call. I don't know if you have any updates on some of those, so.
Sure. The two at near Quick Trip, the Highfield, are 35 unit buildings, and those are supposed to be going online here soon. One building's further along than the other. And then at the Century Court West, they're going to be breaking ground on another 12 unit building this fall, with more potentially for next year. So those are the ones that are kind of in the hopper. It's about 82 units.
Yep, and what I can add is that I've had some discussions with the folks at Maxfield Research. They do the housing studies for the city. And they said, even with all of those coming online, it's still gonna be tight. And there's still plenty of room to be adding, housing developments of different types.
Well, I remember when Highfield came in and started building, and they said they were going to go through phases, but they moved it right along. I mean, they were just going to put one building up, and all of a sudden they're putting all those buildings up out there. And like you said, they're full already.
I heard from a realtor last week that there's under 30 houses for sale in town. And I don't know, Mary, you work in that world a little bit. And I don't know if that number is accurate, but that sounds brutal to me.
That number is even less now. So there's not a lot of homes for sale.
Mayor, I do want to bring up, there was a request from Mr. Birch to address the council again. I guess that's up to your discretion on whether or not you would want to allow that. So.
I think if he wants to discuss anything, I think he should talk with Miles. So we're going to move on. Alrighty, anything else for Miles? Thanks, Miles.
You bet. Thank you very much.
Yep. Alrighty, moving on. Under new business, amended bylaws for the Hutchinson Fire Department Relief Association. And I am going to abstain from this discussion because I am a pensioner of the fire department. So go ahead, Matt.
Mayor and Council, you do have in front of you for consideration some amended bylaws for the Hutchinson Fire Department Relief Association. And just through some questions and comments through the last couple of days, there was a couple slight adjustments made to that, and now a copy of that was sent out to you late this afternoon. But with us, we do have members of the fire relief. Gary, I maybe just ask you, take your mic off, sorry.
Oh. I'm sorry, I thought I turned it off.
You're throwing your garbage away, so. And so we'll maybe hand it over to the fire relief department to introduce what's being proposed, and then obviously open up to the council for any questions or comments.
All right, thank you. I'm Jason Sturgis. I'm the Vice President of the Relief Association. I'm here tonight with other members of our Relief Association and also our financial advisor. And we're here tonight. We've been working closely with the law firm of Flaherty Hood to create a new set of bylaws to add the lump sum option payout to our bylaws. So you should have all the information, like Matt mentioned, in front of you, and we're here to answer any of the questions that you may have in response to the information you have.
Jason, maybe if you could, just for the council, give them an update on where we currently at with relief. You know, you talked about going to a lump sum, and maybe note that we're one of two that only offer that option, and maybe some of the reason behind looking at going that route.
Yes, like Matt mentioned, we are one of two fire departments that still do the monthly, and we only do the monthly at this time. By going to a lump sum option, what that does is it helps to clean up the relief. You don't have the unknowns as far as how long somebody's going to draw out of the fund. With a lump sum option, the second that you retire and you turn 50 and you're eligible, the payout happens at that point. So then you're no longer part of the Relief Association. And most fire departments have either went to the lump sum or are like us transitioning into that.
Hi,
Is there
this is, yeah, thanks for coming, Jason. Just, you know, I had sent some questions and I appreciate some of those being discussed and some got incorporated and all that. I was just curious in section 8.3, a couple of sentences in, it says, except as provided in section 9.5, no service pension shall be paid to any person while that person remains in active service to the Hutchinson Fire Department. I had suggested or questioned if that really should be section 8.5, because that talks about the possibility of paying or continue to pay a service pensioner if a member is a full-time firefighter or works for the fire department in a full-time capacity. 9.5 doesn't talk about anything with that. So just wondering why the thought is that 9.5 is correct.
All right, Steve, I'll do my best to answer that question. So if you look at it, 8.5 actually addresses, I'll say, a current fire chief, a full-time position, and how they can be paid out. They can continue to be active. They're going to be separated from our relief association, and they could possibly either be collecting the monthly payout or have taken the lump sum. 9.5 talks about the state has $1,000 payment that they give. So it's kind of an extra one that I think we as a relief pay out and we get reimbursed. So that's why it's addressing the 9.5. And I got other people here to help with questions too. So we might switch out here in between. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I guess I don't agree, but I see what you're saying with the 9.5, you know, and that extra $1,000 or $2,000 if it's beneficiary. But I think that's kind of part of the same deal as the pension, where 9 says except as provided in 9.5. But that's where 8.5 kind of comes in. The other question I had is on the payments, and you know, the way it's worded now, it says payments for the lump sum will be payable to the retiring member subject to current income tax withholding requirements. I know, and I shared with you that other options are available, that it could be paid on the behalf of the firefighter to like an IRA. You know, it doesn't go to them directly. It goes directly to that group, you know, whoever it might be. And there's some other options too. And I don't know if your current paperwork draws that allowance or makes the firefighters aware of those other opportunities. So I just wanted to make sure that that was provided for.
With that question, I'm going to turn it over to our financial advisor. He will be able to answer that more in detail. So give me just a second here.
Council members, it's Mark Max with Ameriprise Financial, and I work with the Relief Association and managing funds that are used to help facilitate the pension payments, and also with the lump sum arrangement that they're talking about using. So to answer that question, Steve, they will have a packet of information that they will give each of the retiring members or those that are eligible that will break out what their distribution options are. And so for current firemen right now that they have the option of choosing one of three things. One would be, I want to take a monthly payment. Two would be, I want to take a lump sum that's paid directly to me and I'll pay my taxes and penalties on it. Three would be the option of rolling or transferring that out to an IRA. And all of those people have to sign off on that, whatever option that they decide that they want to accept or take. And so the verbiage in there, when I talked to the fellows, and from what the attorney drew up, lump sum can be interpreted many different ways. That simply is saying you have the option to take a lump sum distribution. How the manner in which they take that will be addressed with separate paperwork that each individual will be required to fill out. Does that answer that question?
That does. That's good. Again, just looking at that, I wasn't sure. And as I mentioned, or you might have saw, I found a template from the state auditor that was from this year that kind of broke those out as part of a bylaw situation. Yes. But if they're provided with the information at that time, then that works. Apparently, the people that take the monthly benefit, they could also do that, right? As far as roll that over.
Not you guys can help me on this one if I need it, but not those that have already elected to take the monthly benefit.
Right. I didn't mean that. Yeah. But the people that retire coming forward, they could either, if they take the lump sum or the monthly, they could still elect to roll those over into an IRA if they want.
Not the monthly payment. Monthly payments would be distributed out to them over their lifetime.
Well, and then that might be something to check, because again, in the auditor's template, it actually showed where an option would be the same, that they could elect to have that money distributed into their IRA.
On a monthly
yes.
basis.
Yeah.
I've never seen that with any pensions that I'm aware of, but that's something that could be looked at and could be provided to them.
Okay. Just, maybe something to look at.
Yep. One other comment that I will make is a question came about to us. Is this going to be a difficult transition? Because currently when we help manage the money, we're looking at here's how much we're paying out in monthly pensions along the way. And so now we'd be talking about there'll be some monthly pensions that are being paid out, and then there will be some lump sum distribution requests from year to year. And I don't see any issue with that. In fact, I think over a period of time, it'll be easier for them to manage the funds and for people like ourselves to get advice on them, because we will know more of a definitive figure of how much money is going to be coming out and when along the way. It's not just based off of life expectancies which have varied tremendously over the years. So I think that's the reason that the majority of the fire departments around the state have kind of gone to this model. It's easier and more efficient way to manage the funds. So any other questions for me?
I don't know who this would be for, but part of it is, just understanding you're trying to replicate, financially, what a current member gets versus, what the monthly versus the lump sum. And then at the same time, we have to look at how the effect that it would have on, the fund balances and percent funded, that type of thing. So you're confident that it sounds like you worked with the actuarial and they helped with formulating everything.
Yes. Yep. Everything is based off of actuarial computation that the guys are required to have, and they do on an annual basis, actually. And then also we've looked at other best case scenarios, worst case scenarios. What happens if a number of firefighters decided in one given year that we're eligible, I'll take the lump sum? Would that violate the integrity of the fund? in our opinion, it wouldn't be any problem at all based off of the current roster and what previous trends have been. As far as how many people, actually, they have to have 15 years of service before they're eligible to be eligible for a pension or for the distribution. And one of the things I think that is key to this is that from the individual looking to join the fire department, I think from a retention standpoint, I think it's going to be a big win to be able to retain people on the fire department, because they're looking at a number when they're done that may say $40,000 versus $400 a month. And that means more to them and their ability to have those funds available as a retention purpose than the pension of $400 a month does. So I think I just think it's a win-win. And talking to the other fire departments around the state, that's kind of one of the reasons they've gone that direction as well, because it's hard to get people and it's hard to keep them on the force. So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Mark. I think it's a great addition to the whole plan, and hope that it helps retain as well as attract other people. You mentioned 40,000, that'd be closer to 55 for 15 years and over 70 for 20 years. So,
exactly.
It's significant and something that, this can be worth it. So,
yeah, it'll catch their eye.
Yeah. Thanks for coming by, and
thank
the
you.
other guys. Yeah.
I'll turn. Anybody else? I'll put this in back.
Any other questions for Mr. Sturgis? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? Roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining. Motion carries. Alrighty, setting budget workshop for easy, Chad. I know that you're excited about this one. November 24th, 2020 at 4 p.m.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this will be our fourth budget workshop. And we touch on the enterprise funds, and then we'll kind of give an update to the council on where we're at with the proposed general fund and other tax levies prior to our truth and taxation hearing, which is scheduled for early December.
Make a motion to set that meeting.
I'll second it. Motion by Chad, second by myself. Any other discussion? Roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 10.5 transient merchant license for Katie Wright.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we had a later request come in for a transient merchant license. It's been reviewed by our police department with a clear background, and staff is recommending approval of it.
Make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the license. Any other discussion? Roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad? Aye. Motion carries. Governance, we have minutes, reports from committees, boards, or commissions. We have the City of Hutchinson financial report and investment report for September 2020. The Hutchinson Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from September 15th, 2020. Planning, Zoning, Building Department Quarterly Report for 2020. Alrighty. Matt, do we have Chief Gipperson there tonight?
Yes, he is.
Does he have anything for us?
No, he does not.
Alrighty. How about Tom? Is Tom there, our IT guy?
Yeah, he is. He doesn't have any updates either, so.
Nothing.
No, so.
Do we have John Olson?
Nope, we've got Kent and Mark and myself.
Okay, well, let's hit Kent then.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple things. First and most importantly, leaf vacuuming. Obviously, our operations have been suspended. We're hoping to get through this week. That we won't be providing the service this week. Hopefully, we get a little warmer, drier weather towards the end of the week. Get some leaves to dry out. Obviously, get the snow to melt and primarily get it out of the curb lines and get it to go away, and then start the leaf vacuuming next Monday again. So, yeah, unfortunately, and obviously 6 inches of snow or so doesn't help the cause on the leaf vacuuming front. But by all means, we have we'll have about 2 weeks left. And yeah, we anticipate, obviously, if the weather cooperates, seeing quite a bit of leaves in those 2 weeks and handling them accordingly. The other thing, Highway 212, and namely the East Gaps, 2-lane gap between Fleet Farm, Carver, and then to the west to Cologne, where the 4-lane picks up again. Carver County just recently announced that is fully funded now. So, yeah, they have all the pieces in place. The final design is well underway. They anticipate bidding that this winter here, early spring, and should be getting started next summer in 2021. They also alluded to the westerly gaps between Cologne and Northern America. If everything works out and they can get the funding secured that they are pursuing, they're hoping 2024 to begin that project. So, yeah, the first one will take 2 years. So, that'll go 21 through 22, probably the end of 22, if not into 23. And then the West Gaps, they're looking at 24. So, that's all
They deserve a lot of credit for being persistent and tenacious, and a lot of other people obviously too, but Carver County has really led the way on that.
No doubt, Steve. Carver County is to be commended. Without them, yeah, this wouldn't be getting addressed. If it was solely MnDOT leading the cause, Carver is in the Metro District. Carver County is, and unfortunately, 212 falls towards the middle range of priorities with respect to the entire metro area. So, yeah, Carver County has to be commended. Namely, the implementation of their half-cent sales tax a few years ago to fund highway improvement projects is really what was necessary to make this happen, along with capturing some federal dollars and some MnDOT drunk highway dollars.
Saw even in the bonding bill, they change on the one intersection there too.
The Chaska intersection, Steve?
I believe it was. Yeah.
The name of the highway. Yeah, it's just to the west of Fleet Farm. Yeah, they were probably looking for a little more money, I'm guessing. I think they had a bonding allocation a few years ago, and I think they upped that, would be my guess.
Chad, your mic's on, by the way. I think you need to click in your pen.
Hey, Kent, you want to kind of address about adopting a a drain right now because of all the leaves and stuff. So they can drain it out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Gary. Staff we do what we can. Obviously, there's a lot of leaves like out there that I just alluded to that aren't being picked up and are being either placed in the gutter lines or landing in the gutter lines. Yeah, if you see a drain that's has a lot of leaves on it, just take a rake simply and rake them aside. It might last a day or two depending on where the drain is at and what the wind's doing and if there's any rain. But some catch basin inlets are worse than others, and just due to the nature of the inlet and the location. But yeah, please, if you see one, especially during a rain event that water's stacking up at and is plugged, just a little bit with the dirt rake goes a long ways.
All right, thanks, Ken.
Yep, thank you.
Does Mark have anything tonight?
Surprisingly, no, he doesn't. So.
Oh, okay. Chad, do you have anything for us?
I'd just like to apologize for the pen clicking, and also just make sure everybody gets out to vote if you haven't. It's important to fulfill your duty and make sure you're an informed voter. So that's it.
Chad, that's all right. You're clicking your pen. I did make the basket. A wrestler made the basket. So, Steve, do you have anything for us?
Oh, one, I was just wondering if there's an update on the rec center roof as far as the materials.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't. I mean, I think the weather delayed things too. I'll follow up with that. I had heard it was supposed to be, I think, mid-October. Well, now we're almost end of October. So unless Chad had received anything, but I'll follow up with the council on that. So
sure. Just wondering, this was let, I looked back and it was mid-February, February 11th. And so you'd think they would have, I get there's some supply chain things, but, to get stuff ordered earlier on. And do we have is there provisions to withhold anything? I suppose we have withheld some money yet because it's not complete.
yeah, they have not. I do not believe we've made a full payment to them, but that's actually on my list of. I think we need to look at whether or not there was any punitive damages because I believe they were supposed to be done by September 1st. I don't know for certain. I think there was maybe some other things going on with supply stuff, but either which way, there was a contract that I was entered into, and it's quite disappointing that we're sitting here towards the end of October, November, and we're still waiting for one of the most significant portions of that project to be done. So.
All right, thanks. The other thing, I talk about the ash trees a lot, and now emerald ash borer was found in Carver and Sibley counties on the east side, still, but so now we got it in Wright, Sibley and Carver, Nicollet County has it, and so we're starting to get surrounded. And so, as I've talked about it, I've really tried to stress trying to diversify some of the trees in these higher concentration areas, especially as we've talked about in other street projects. That's an opportunity to do some. And just wondering how the other council members feel about that, and that, should we just, are we all on board, with staff that they should be trying to diversify more, when we're talking about the area, the southwest drainage on the east side. It sounded like Donovan was going to be doing some inventorying on conditions, but then also talking to property owners. But, I don't know if we talked to property owners on Fifth Avenue and necessarily Adams Street. We did what we felt was right. And in the long term, it is right. I mean, what's happened on Adam Street's really turning out to be beautiful. And so here now we have other opportunities, and so does council feel like staff should be trying to look at some of those other opportunities, even if they're more healthy trees, but they're still in clusters of high concentrations? Because I think, when I read it, healthy trees are just as apt to get it. Obviously weakened trees or poor quality might get affected earlier or more often, but healthy trees get it. And when you're in high concentration areas, it's, if one tree gets it, the others around it probably will. So just trying to diversify more and get new trees started and give them a good chance to be growing bigger by the time EAB actually gets here. So, any thoughts from the council on that?
Well, I like that idea. Yeah. I think they should be diversified. We cannot have all the same trees in one area. You look at, well, we haven't planted the oaks, but the oaks that are in town, a lot of them are in trouble with the bird oak blight, and the ash borers, they're going to be here, I do believe that we need to really diversify our trees. And I think Donovan is really trying to do that. He's planted some in our neighborhood, and they are totally different than anything that's in the neighborhood, because all those trees have a cycle life. We know that, especially with maples and those, they're good for, you don't want your whole block full of maples at the same age. They're all going to die at the same time. So it's good to diversify.
Maybe a point of clarification. I think we have a plan in place to diversify. I think, Stephen, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're suggesting we maybe be more aggressive than what we currently are.
Yeah, if you look at the plan and a lot of the discussions, the preference is to go after lower quality trees. And I agree with that. But at the same time, as we're doing some of these other projects, there might be opportunities to be more aggressive and even take some healthier trees if it allows us the opportunity to do more diversification. And just as was talked about on those couple of street projects, that it's a lot easier to do it when you're doing a street project and than closing things down later on. So that's all. And I appreciate what Donovan's doing. And I see, the progress that's being made. It's just trying to do a little bit more. That's all.
Quickly on that note, Steve, and we talked quite a bit about this during Fifth Avenue last year, and and Donovan and myself and engineering staff have had conversations, and obviously John Olson's involved. Emerald ash borer isn't going away. It's getting closer. Honestly, the simplest thing from a project standpoint, when we're out there, ripping up the street, disturbing the boulevards, that's the time, to take the ash trees that are within the right of way, within the public right of way, in my mind. And also from Donovan's standpoint, it's you can build them into a larger bid. Obviously, the overall street project, they can get addressed, they get removed, they get grubbed. We're not so worried about making a mess. The tree contractor making a mess, specifically the grubbing contractor, and then everything gets restored, throughout the project area. I think there's been some hesitation up to this point to take every ash tree within public right of way on the projects. Gather input from the property owners, but that gets very clumsy. And other than the input possibly being a letter after we identified the locations of the ash trees that simply say, you have 1-2 ash trees that are within city right of way, ideally the city would like to keep them or take them, would you like to keep them? And just giving them the option, to keep them, you know, but I hate to go there. I hate for staff to determine, I think we talked about this a bit during Fifth Avenue. I hate for staff to determine which ash trees to keep and which ones to take. That gets clumsy property to property. So I think, honestly, the best solution is, in my mind, take the ash trees on a project within city right away. And then we do, like it's been alluded to, Donovan does a great job, you know, with diversifying and identifying different species that he's confident in that'll obviously survive and flourish in a specific area. So I'll just pose that overarching question, I guess, to council. I don't know if that's where you're going, Steve, but.
Well, they had one advantage with the boulevard trees where that isn't so bad is because typically in a neighborhood, you know, there's other trees around. So you're not taking every tree in the block or, you know, so actually I can see from staff standpoint, if that's kind of the policy, you know, that the council adopts and directs staff to do, that would make it easier. You know, I guess the only exception would be, you know, if it's, like I said, in those certain areas where there's just a ton of them, if we could keep one or two, you know, targeted, maybe they're healthy and, you know, just to still have some trees there so that all the trees aren't the same maturity. So, you know, as they age, like, I don't know if that helps you. It's still kind of some.
No, I think that gives us some general guidance. I think, yeah, obviously if we got into a corridor, a street that, you know, every property had 2 ash trees sitting out in front of it and, you know, that's all that's there. Yeah, I think we would, you know, apply some diligence and, you know, try to leave some and really make that staff's decision, not a property owner's decision. I think we have to remember these are city trees within the city public right away at the end of the day.
Is the other council members okay with that? Any thoughts?
Well, I think Donovan does a great job. So I think give him the reins and let him go and let him do his job.
Yeah, but part of this is just giving them, you know, the okay that we can be a little bit more aggressive, you know, to fulfill, you know, our objective of diversifying, replacing the ash.
And I think the public in general is fairly educated on emerald ash borer. They've heard enough about it. And actually we ran into people that they know that that's an ash tree. They know there's a bug coming that's going to ultimately kill it. And if we're there taking trees, a lot of people are going to say, why aren't you taking that anyways? You know, you're just going to be back here in, you know, 2-3 years, or in their mind, might be the question posed, and you're going to take it anyways. So I think the beauty of it is we get them removed within a project, we get them replaced. The other thing is these trees are the removal and replacements being purchased by improvement dollars, in essence, infrastructure roadway dollars. So it doesn't impact Donovan's and John's budget, or, you know, the other grant monies, tree grant monies, or, you know, boulevard trees monies that we have set aside. So, you know, we're adding to our diversification effort within the context of a project and not impacting our forestry budgets. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Anything else, Steve?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Dave, do you have anything for us?
Just want to comment on Main Street. That's a nice drive end to end. If you got anything else to do, it's nice and smooth. Good job done. A job well done, and that's appreciated. And I just want to reiterate Chad's voting taking the time to get that done. And I'm sure there's many that's already balloted before the election day, but yeah, everybody's vote counts and everybody needs to vote. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Mary?
I have a couple of things, and maybe Kent can address those things. The street lights on Washington, as you come down on Washington and cross Main, those street lights have been out for a long time. And I talked to John about it, and they're still out. You know, they're out on the side street, on like the office sits on Washington, and all those lights are out. So it's dark all the time. And I noticed that the lights are also still out. This morning I looked as I drove through Main Street, the lights heading down on Main Street on the east side and down on the west side on 5th, those street lights are still out too.
Yep.
So
the electrical subcontractor hasn't completed their work is what it boils down to. Unfortunately, obviously the weather's impacted them to some degree. MnDOT has been on them to get them back in and get their issues resolved. There's a project punch list, which is basically a list of remaining work items, and it is pretty much all of them have to do with the electrical contractor, you know, street lights or the signal system items. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we're at the whim of that said contractor at this point.
well, you know, it wouldn't be so bad, but it's really dark, and there are still people who are out walking at 6 a.m. when I go to work, you know, and they're wearing little headlights on top of their.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's unfortunate. Obviously, daylight's getting less and less around here, and yeah, MnDOT's leaning on the general contractor, and I believe the general contractor has been, you know, leaning on the electrical subcontractor to get back and get things addressed and finalized.
All right. Well, thanks for that update. The only thing I can reiterate is get out there and vote, folks. Every vote counts.
Hey, Kent, sorry. Just wondering if you know if the left turn signal on Century Avenue going west is working yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't been out there again, Steve. Yeah, MnDOT's aware of that. Honestly, I don't know why they touched that leg of the intersection. We put it in brand new, you know, 2 years ago, and for some reason they elected to replace it, and it didn't go well a few weeks ago. So yeah.
And I saw somebody on Friday was down by Denver. You know, a MnDOT guy was in the box there, but yesterday it wasn't done on Century. I was going to look today, but didn't have a chance. But anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, that might be another item that's waiting to be addressed by Design Electric, you know, as on their list. Thank you.
Matt, you have anything for us?
Sure, just I guess speaking to everyone's comments about getting out and vote, just a reminder that's Tuesday. It's at the rec center. Polling place is open from 7 to 7, correct, Melissa? 7 to 8 p.m. I'm sorry, 7 to 8 p.m. at the rec center. But and currently you can do early voting here at the city center. That's from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But I do want to let the public know there are some extended hours that are coming up. That's this Saturday, and that'll be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on Monday, it will be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So just a reminder, there are some extended hours. You can do that right here in the council chambers at the rec center. And the one thing that nobody did touch on that I want to at least acknowledge, and it was in the paper and everyone got an update on it, about the bonding bill and how Hutchinson was included in the bonding bill. And so our efforts, and I'll give kudos to Steve as the kind of the council rep that set in on that project, and the amount of effort that we put in, and Kent and his staff, and with talking with our legislatures to get that 3.1 million. I think we asked for 4.5, but we'll take 3.1 million. That'll go a long way in helping to accomplish our Lakes River Basin plan that we, I think, approved back in 2019 now.
Just the next phase of it anyway.
Exactly, because I don't know if you want to share what the total number was, which closer to 20 million, but it's a good first step in that. And so, and then I guess the last thing too, since we, approved the logo a few months back, I'm having some stakeholder meetings to go into a little bit more in depth behind the marketing and branding plan. I've sent that invitation out, but if anybody has any interest in that, they can contact me and I'll get them the link to it. Like I said, we didn't do a logo project, we did a marketing and branding plan. And so I'm gonna go into a little bit more details on what that plan all consisted of. So otherwise, that's it for me.
Alrighty, thanks, Matt. And all I got is, like everybody else says, it's your right to go and vote, so go out and do it. So with that, adjournment's in order.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to adjourn. Roll call, Dave. Mary.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.